Good evening, everyone. I'd like to reconvene the open session of the Coventry School Committee. I have 7 o'clock, and if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you could remain standing for a moment of silence as we consider the work before us this evening. You may be seated. And Mr. Levis, if you could inform the public of the emergency exits, please.
Sure. In case of an emergency, there are exits to your rear. Go out the exits to the foyer. You can exit to either left or your right outside of the building. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Pearson, if you could honor us with the mission statement for Coventry Public Schools.
Coventry Public Schools, with community partnerships, educate, inspire, and motivate students to be lifelong learners.
Thank you. And just to inform the public, the school committee met in executive session for about a half hour. Previous to this meeting, we had 2 votes. They were both unanimous, 5-0, and they were our homeschool requests and the minutes of our executive session meeting on October 10th. That being said, is there a motion to seal the records of our executive session?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the records of the executive session be kept closed pursuant to sections 42-46-4 and 42-46-5.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the approval of our minutes from October 10th. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the open meeting on October 10, 2019 as presented/amended.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to agenda item number 6, personnel. Coach did you want to speak to any of these, Mr. Levis? Okay, so is there a motion to approve the resignation of Tiffany Smith?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the resignation of Tiffany Smith, gymnastics coach at Coventry High School, effective October 15, 2019.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to classified appointments. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Jamie Ordens, 4-hour/day teacher assistant kindergarten at Hopkins Hill Elementary School, retroactive to October 14th, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to Melanie Fitzgerald. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Melanie Fitzgerald, 4-hour/day teacher assistant intensive support life skills at Tioga Elementary School, effective October 28, 2019.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the next recommendation. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Watobi Olagundi, 4-hour/day supervisory assistant at Washington Oak Elementary School, effective October 24th, 2019,
I second.
starting on Monday, October 18th, 2019.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on finally to Don Millardo. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to affirm the recommendation of the superintendent to appoint Dawn Mulatto, 4-hour/day teacher assistant intensive support Strive at Weston Coventry Elementary School, effective October 30th, 2019.
Second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Are any of those fine folks here? Seeing none, congratulate them for their hire. Moving on to the public agenda, just so the public is aware, The following agenda items are open for public discussion. If there is a vote involved in any of our agenda items, the motion will be made, but before the committee takes the vote, we will ask for public input from the audience. That being said, we'd like to move on to number 7, which is the celebration. Mr. Levis, would you like
Sure.
to start that?
Sure, I'll start. So we have a little press release here. It's a little dated press release, but and this celebration is to recognize Ms. Luchka, Carrie Luchka. I'm going to say a couple words, and I'm going to ask Amy to come up, and I know Amy Insolini wants to say a few words. And then we have a certificate and flowers, and then hopefully you can address the committee. And so this is just something, an official biography. Knowing that Kerry received the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math, Science, Teaching. So it just says, Kerry Luchka has been an educator for more than 15 years. For the past year, and this was when this was submitted, she had taught both mathematics and science to 6th graders at Allen Shawn Feinstein Middle School. Kerry's now a 5th grade ELA teacher at Western this year. She previously spent 8 years teaching 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at Western Coventry Elementary School, and 6 years teaching at the lower school at Sweet Peas Village. The first time I believe I saw you present was the green team in Western Coventry when you guys went to Washington, D.C., and that was an outstanding, I know the committee remembers, outstanding presentation with your students. Kerry's been a national energy education development, as I said, NEED project leader in multiple schools where she educates and inspires students to consider human impact and climate change. She encourages her students to innovate, work together, and problem-solve solutions to real-world problems. Most importantly, she encourages them to gain the confidence and passion to lead. Kerry and students have been recognized as national finalists in the NEED Youth Awards. She's also been recognized by the Eastern States Exposition as the 2017 Agri-Science Teacher of the Year. Kerry served as a member of Coventry Science Task Force, where she collaborated with and helped to develop a new district-wide elementary science curriculum aligned to the next generation science standards. She has worked with colleagues to develop and implement professional development within her district. She earned a BS in elementary education from Rhode Island College and is certified to teach through 6th grade elementary. So I'm going to ask Amy, if you don't mind coming up.
I'm going to have to stand back here and turn simultaneously. It's an honor for me to come here this evening to talk about Kerry Luchka, and I'm hoping you'll bear with me for a couple of minutes as I tell you a few of the reasons why I nominated her for the National Science Excellence Teacher Award. In 2001, I was a 2nd grade teacher at Blackrock. My principal asked me to take a student teacher from Rick. I had no idea who Kerry Luchka was, but having her as my student teacher made me a better educator from day one. I often told Kerry during that time that I had learned just as much from her as she did from me. As a matter of fact, my husband used to say to me when I learned a new computer trick, "Amy, did the whiz kid teach you that?" He reminded me of that this morning as I read him and he said, "You got to put in whiz kid." After her student teaching, Kerry aspired to work at Coventry Public Schools. That's what she wanted. Took a while for her to get in, but when Jan Sullivan and Jim Aronakis hired her in 2010, I told them she will never disappoint you. 1 year ago, I nominated Mrs. Luchka for the National Science Teaching Award. Kerry is unquestionably one of the most passionate, talented, and hardworking teachers I've had the pleasure to work with in my 30-year career. Her devotion to the profession, and specifically to the teaching and learning of science, is inspirational. Mrs. Luchka is a model for her colleagues and an ideal candidate to be recognized for her accomplishments. For the past 8 years, I have watched Ms. Luchka embrace the challenge of learning all she can about teaching and learning, and about using the best practices to reach, engage, and motivate her students to grow and learn. Most importantly, she motivates her students to learn outside of the classroom. Kerry is a reflective practitioner and a dedicated learner. Everything she does has been well thought out and then she rethinks it all, things that had worked well, and how she could do it better. As her principal, I have always enjoyed her visits, my visits to her room. Both Mrs. Lechka and her students teach me about the scientific world. Curiosity and wonder abound from all of her students, no matter what their strengths or needs are. Carrie purposefully plans activities that meet students where they are and pushes them to think more about what they need to learn. Mrs. Lechka has an excellent ability to structure lessons where learning content is not the only focus. She teaches students to be metacognitive. During one of my visits, Mrs. Lechka challenged her 5th grade students to support an argument for or against how if plants get their materials they need to grow chiefly from air and water. The students watched a short video of plants growing in very unusual places and then developed hypotheses for what was essential for plant growth. She then had multiple station activities that they participated in, collecting data and looking for evidence that proved or disproved their hypothesis. I was amazed as they identified independent and dependent variables, used prior knowledge and observations, measured to collect data, constructed graphical displays, and then used evidence to construct or support an explanation. The effort and planning that went into creating this experience for her students was exceptional, and that was just one day when I walked in. Partnering with one of her colleagues, Carrie was instrumental in planning for more inquiry-based instruction at Western over the past 8 years. This work moved our school from being in the middle of the pack in science for Rhode Island elementary schools to being one of the top in the state on science assessments. Ms. Lechka's contributions to our students, schools, and district and the state are numerous. As Mr. Levis said, 6 years ago, she established the Green Team at Western. This team met before and after school to learn about the environment and the human impact upon it. The team created ways to educate our school and community about how to make a difference. NEED, the National Energy Education Development Project, has taken this work from Carrie for 4 years and recognized our school both at the state and national level as the Elementary School of the Year. Our school has traveled to Washington, D.C. 4 years in a row and participated in a national conference with students from across the nation. These opportunities have inspired our students to create additional green teams in the middle school and pursue future careers in the sciences. Changes in science education have been numerous over the past 10 years. Ms. Lechka has been a leading force in helping our district progress towards learning the NGSS standards and best practices. She has piloted new technology, trained other faculty on new resources, and been instrumental in coordinating science materials for our science closet at Western. Most importantly, Mrs. Lechka has been a lead writer for our science curriculum. This is an undertaking that will have positive impacts for guiding science instruction for years to come. Finally, I cannot finish without speaking about Ms. Lechka's capacity to connect and support her students. The students in her class are challenged and motivated to be better thinkers and learners. This talent, in and of itself, is worthy of our praise. Ms. Lechka is more than that, though. Every day, she considers the social and emotional needs of her students, too. She will do what is ever necessary for all students to belong and have a positive experience in school. Carrie approached me in October of 2017 and said that she was concerned that the students in her class needed information about another student that had autism in order to help support that classmate, especially when that student was not emotionally regulated. Mrs. Lechka put together a presentation that was so well done that we used it for other grades, faculty and staff, and it was even given to another school to support some of their students and teachers in understanding and accepting differences. Going above and beyond is what she does every single day. Ms. Lechka is more than a teacher of science. She is one of the most compassionate, intelligent, and talented and hardworking individuals I've ever met, and she loves all things to do with science. Carrie has taken her talents to ELA this year. I have already been impressed with what I see in her reading class. I asked her fifth graders from this year to describe Miss Lechka for you. This is some of the things they said. She always gives great advice on how to improve our writing. She has high expectations. Her motto is, fail early, fail often, and fail forward. Learn from your mistakes. This is what they said to me. She is amazingly caring. She is so organized. She has OCD like me. She always has great books and articles for us to read. The lessons are just right, interesting, not too much work, but they make us think. She's great at telling stories. Right now, they told me, they're reading about World War II and human rights, and we're learning about world history and its impacts. Together, they said to me, one of the best teachers we've ever had, and it's only October, Mrs. A. Such compliments for you, Carrie. So Carrie was honored last week with a trip to DC and $10,000 from the National Science Foundation. I'm a huge fan, as you can tell, of all that Miss Lechka stands for. Congratulations.
I borrowed that from Will Smith. Fail often, fail early, but most importantly, fail forward. Oh my goodness, thank you. I don't even know what to say, but I just love my job and the kids in front of me. And honestly, when I look out and I see them, I see the future, and I just see the future for them individually and collectively. So thank you. Receiving this award is not only a great honor, but an acknowledgement of hard work, dedication, determination. My time in Washington, D.C. was exhilarating and inspirational, to say the least. I was able to converse with like-minded individuals from across the nation, as well as the other PEMST awardees from Rhode Island, Lindsay Bliven, Christina Sparvin, both from Charahoe, and David and Peggy from Central Falls. Our conversations were filled with optimism, hope, and familiar stories of our students. We talked about our ideas and curriculum, as well as our needs and obstacles. We listened as the president of NASTA, senior policy advisors and program directors at NSF and the Office of Science and Technology spoke about their journeys in policy and education. We tackled STEM professional development like you would expect a room full of science and math teachers would, measuring and outbuilding each other, carefully designing while explaining how science and engineering practices are being used in tandem with the math practices, and excited to bring new ideas and activities back to our students. I was honored to attend the White House STEM Summit, where we reviewed America's strategy for STEM education, actively discussing how it's been implemented thus far, the challenges and barriers of implementation, as well as brainstorming ways the federal government can help teachers and the community. The discussion was eye-opening in that there were so many common themes circulating through the room and being echoed from every state. But it also became apparent that there were vast differences across the country, shining a light on equity. Congressional visits were arranged, and the importance of STEM education in growing our nation's economy and strengthening our national security was echoed by Senator Jack Reed and Congressman David Cicilline. We attended breakfast at the Willard International Hotel and dinner at the Kennedy Center, which were adorned with inspirational teacher leaders, university presidents, and directors of NSF, each presenting uplifting messages and success stories with passion and conviction, in conjunction with great dinner conversations, shifting from the larger ideas upon us to the small successes we have celebrated alongside our students. These are some of the bigger moments I will never forget, but there are many small moments too. The phrase embroidered on one of the flags proudly displayed in the White House read, "E pluribus unum," meaning out of many one, shifted into focus as we lined up to take a picture. The phrase took on so many meanings. I thought about how the collective effort, hard work, and determination of many has built our great nation today. I thought about the many teachers gathered in our nation's capital with one common purpose. And finally, on a much smaller but still deeply meaning and significant way, I couldn't help but think of the many people who have supported, helped, and encouraged me. If it were not for them, I may not be standing in front of you today. I cannot continue without expressing gratitude to my family, talented colleagues, administrators, mentors, students, and school community who have supported and taught me so much over the years. I hope that receiving this prestigious award honors all of those who helped me to become the teacher I am today. So, thank you.
Apologize for the themed.
I think everything was said, but I'm going to start with Mr. Pearson. Would you like to add any comments from the school committee?
Just congratulations, and it's always a pleasure to see Coventry represented to be recognized, but to see it on the national stage is just taking it to another level. So game on for all the other teachers, by the way. No, congratulations, and thank you for doing such a great job.
I just have one thing to say. I remember a few years ago how your students came out in support of you, and that just says what a good teacher you are, and how much they love you. So, thanks for your dedication.
As my daughter's favorite teacher still, and my daughter was one of the ones holding one of those signs during the budget hearings. And I want to thank you for sticking with Coventry, because you had choices to go elsewhere, but you stuck here, and we're much better for it. And I'm glad that at a national level, you've been recognized what we already knew, which is that you're an outstanding educator, and we're very lucky to have you. So thank you personally.
Thank you and congratulations, Kerry. You're welcome.
Just, it's an amazing honor. I'm sure you feel honored. We feel honored to have you in our community, and I echo what Luke says. I'm so happy that you stayed in Coventry, and you make a difference, and we're very happy that you're here. Congratulations. I can only imagine how it must have been in Washington, so right on.
I just want to say quickly, I went a couple weeks ago, maybe it was, I stopped into Kerry's classroom and teaching ELA, and you were talking about, something political in terms of, was it one of the human rights? And just listen to the conversations and the students and the engagement. But that's why I always encourage the school committee. I'd like to encourage the council to come in, I think, to spend time in the classrooms and not just walk through, but to see the engagement, because we're recognizing Kerry today, and she's done an incredible job. We have so many incredible, amazing teachers that engage students every single day. And not to take away, this is your celebration, but I think it's important to recognize you're one of many, and obviously you're an amazing educator. But it's all about the investment that this community makes in its children, right, in the youth. And I loved how you said the future. But I look at it, in my role, it's the collective support of the people that, not to use an overused cliche, but where the rubber hits the road, teachers dealing with students. I would never have the energy to do it. When I saw so much activity and the facilitation you do for every single student. And this community has so much to be proud of obviously, Ms. Lechka, but also just all the individuals that do the work that you do. So congratulations and thank you so much.
And my final remark before I send it out to the community is both of your remarks were just awesome. So it was really nice to hear all of that, and it really puts everything in place. But it was just very well thought out and wonderfully delivered. That being said, are there any comments from the citizens gathered that anybody would like to make? Yeah. They are, I'm sure. Okay, then I guess we can move on to item number 8, which is the discussion and approval of our threat assessment team policy, second reading.
Right. So we made some adjustments in this. We also put in the statute around FERPA. I also have, and they're in the copy machine, unfortunately, but I have draft protocols that'll be going out to the administrators for feedback that look at the type of threat and with real specific documentation that's aligned to what the state statute is in our policy. So.
All right, before we motion on this, I think the second reading is pretty quick, so do we have a motion for that?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to dispense with the second reading of the Threat Assessment Team Policy, parentheses JLDB, as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Did we want to discuss anything before we move on the actual policy? Are we ready to move? Mr. Florio?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the Threat Assessment Team Policy, parentheses JLDB, as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
And before we call for the vote, is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this particular item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0. Great. Thank you again for the work of the policy committee. Moving on to the revised distribution of materials policy. Our first reading, which was our reference number 4. Mr. Levis, did you want to start that?
All I'm going to say in two parts, two things I'll say is there was one sentence that was added to the policy. In the sentence, I'll read the sentence. The informational notification may not promote any activity or product that students may not legally participate in or possess. And the reason this came about is we've had several, and this is the distribution of materials policy. So about distributing materials through our listserv, distributing materials through students. We've had many things that have gone on, different events that different organizations, groups have sent out through our listserv. And I think many people probably remember, we've had a lot of conversations about this. I've met several times in the past with PTAs, PTOs, many individuals concerned about how we were in the past impacting their ability to operate, impacting fundraising. And I've stated, I don't know how many ways I can't, without the organizations, booster clubs, we could not function. That's a given. However, we found that there are loopholes, and I think everybody probably remembers, or I'll remind you of the time that I sent out a flyer for a particular political party, and it didn't go over so well. But our policy allowed that, so we've tried to tighten that up. We felt strongly, this was brought to the policy subcommittee, they were feeling strongly that if we, and later on tonight, we're going to be talking about vaping and about some of the issues we have around substances and some, more importantly, actions that we're going to take. So again, this is one of those issues where what was presented was we need to tighten this policy up. What I will say is I've received some comments from individuals about concerns about this, again, how it's going to impact fundraising. And personally, I'm not as concerned about that because I think there's always ways around that we can support, and that I will do whatever I can do to support organizations. But I feel strongly that we're in the kid business, and I think this is tightening up the policy. But I don't think it's going to be. I hope it's not as detrimental to organizations as other individuals may feel. But, anyways, I don't.
Okay. Were there any questions from the committee before we move?
Actually, yeah, I wanted to reiterate because I did receive a call from one of my constituents who's a major fundraiser for Black Rock School. And he just wanted me to reiterate, I mean, he was more concerned at the fact that he would not be able to, they usually do calendar raffles and such. Would this impact doing raffles? As, yeah.
This, I mean, I can't speak. I guess I can run that by, I'll have to run that by Mr. Anderson. I don't know, Mr. Pearson, your thoughts, but the concern was,
I know what the concern was.
yeah,
It was,
was more around, because we have organizations that it's around alcohol. My concern would be, what if the vaping business gets into this? I mean, we have to, I'm not saying they were going to, but in terms of,
yeah, we wouldn't use them for a fundraiser.
no, but I mean, but the way the policy is now, if somebody did something like
That's
that, we'd
right.
have to send that out. So my thoughts weren't around the raffles and things like that, but
Okay.
I think there are laws around raffles,
Yeah,
right?
and
People have to
from what
do
I
some with the
understand, he
state
goes and-
police.
Yep, he
Yeah.
gets all
Has
the
to get the
permits and
permit,
everything
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So,
But I will follow up with Mr. Anderson about that.
Okay.
That's what I will, I'm not an attorney, so I definitely will do that.
Yeah, this is the first reading, so,
Yeah, we
I mean,
can
we'll
go
have
back.
time to go back to our PTAs, PTOs, kind of vet as members of our districts, and then kind of rejoin on this issue, I guess.
Yeah,
We can always change.
Just because I
Always
share
be
a similar
changed.
concern. I just want to make sure we vet it out to
Yeah.
make sure we're thinking of
just,
all
yeah,
angles.
because
sure.
We
this
know
is
we
the
had
only
this
way
issue in the
that
past.
our kids get field trips and, and like you said, they're major.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's always
That's all I
The
needed to
key
say.
is we have time.
Okay.
Okay.
So is there a motion to dispense with the first reading?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to dispense with the first reading of the revised distribution of materials policy,
I second.
KDC, as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Any further questions from the committee? Anything from the public? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 5-0.
Can I just say, this will be, if it isn't already, it is. It's on our website, so if you go on the district information under policy manual, you'll see it on the right-hand side, so that everybody can access that before our next reading.
So we are going to table the discussion and approval of the food service management agreement and move on to the discussion on vaping at Coventry High School. So
Right.
did you want to start that, Mr.?
I'll start it, and I'm not going to be very lengthy. There's been a lot of information. I've reached out. I've received some statistics. I have some people here that I'd like to just highlight, if you guys don't mind. I think one is Dana DeVarna. Dana is head of the Coventry Substance Abuse Task Force, and Lauren Cohen, who I spoke about last time, but she wasn't here. Lauren is the the student assistance counselor at the high school. And I don't know, is Kayla here? Okay. And I'm sure there are other people here that I'm not going to point out, but that might be here for this conversation. Just that we have an issue we've known, and I'm focused on the high school now, but I know in the conversations, we need to bring this conversation down to elementary school. Last year, we had our first fifth grader, I believe, that was vaping, and then we addressed that last year. We have a lot planned, but what's alarming to me, I believe is alarming to you, is that we're concerned now. If you look nationally, look what's the data that's been coming out the last 3-4 weeks about individuals who are vaping, but vaping marijuana, THC. It started off maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. I remember seeing 100 and some odd people in the country. Now it's well over 2,000, and it's growing exponentially. There's been deaths, and we don't know all the damage, that's going to be caused by this. And it's been brought to my attention in the last week that, again, many people here, people that have children, are brought to my attention that kids don't feel safe going into the bathrooms. Not that they'll be assaulted, they just don't want to go in because there's 20 kids and maybe, potentially in a bathroom that holds five individuals, 6 individuals, and they're vaping. And so we've known that, and we've talked, remember last year in the budget, we put on supervisory assistants to help address the supervision in the hallways and that. We've put in instituted different things. So when this was brought to my attention about the vaping and the THC and students having access to it and what's going on nationally, I felt that it's imperative to take action. And I reached out to the school committee chair and I said, these are the things. I wasn't looking for permission. I was kidding, but I said, you can fire me on Thursday night, right? Because we need to take action. And I just want to tell you some of the things, and then I'll be quiet. But so we have last year, and so many people in this audience were at that presentation. We had David Neal from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we had a presentation around vaping and the dangers. And we had for the middle school and the high school, because we marketed both, and we had 14 individuals in the audience. So we're going to revisit that on November 13th. So November 13th, we're going to have David Neal come with a program. He's going to have some students, and we're going to, again, market it to the community. We'll do it at the high school. He'll be here, I think, at 6 o'clock. We have a lot of assemblies that are scheduled, that are set up, that Dana DeVarna has put together with the middle school and the high school. That'll be talking about vaping and the dangers, and there'll be mandatory assemblies during the school day that will address, again, all of our students. We've talked about putting parent forums. Lauren has been doing a lot of work at the high school around substance use, looking for students who are willing to take the challenge. I think you put out something the other day about athletes that, are willing to make a commitment and be substance free, and pulling groups together. So we're fortunate, again, we have Lauren through the Student Assistance, Rhode Island Student Assistance Association. Some of the things we've done is I've put on, I don't know if we've started yet, but I've authorized so that we'll have, at least in the short term, we'll have additional supervisory assistants that we're going to have to help support the schools. We talked about looking at a policy around, and I'm drawing a blank. I don't know if you can help me, Mr. Pearson, the name of the policy that we looked at, search of students and school property policy, but we're looking at the relevance of that policy. I purchased 4 handheld metal detectors, and we're going to look, we've been working with, I brought it forward to the policy subcommittee, working with Mr. Anderson about how we could implement that so that we're not violating anybody's rights, but if we have reasonable suspicion that we could use that to detect metal detectors. If we have 30 individuals in a bathroom, I think that might be reasonable suspicion, but we would have to wand all 30 individuals. We need to make sure that whatever we do, I'm not trying to encourage a lawsuit, but I want to take a strong stand on it. We're working with the Coventry Police and the state police on getting the dogs in and taking a look. And again, I want to make sure from a legal perspective, we do the right thing, right? This isn't a scare tactic. I know that I can't stop people from doing certain things, but I can try to stop them from doing it in school property so that those that aren't feel safe and that parents know that we are taking action. We're working with the police on other type of situations or scenarios that we can do. Again, we're going to work with our athletes and our coaches. We'll have many parent forums, but, like I said, kids are dying, adults are dying from this. And, as superintendent, I can't sit here and say that, well, we don't have the money to do this or do that. I'm just not going to, we're going to take some drastic measures to make sure that we do the best we can to make sure that students feel safe in school. So better monitoring. We're also looking at adjustments to the discipline code, which will have to come before the policy subcommittee and to the school committee. But we've talked about we believe that if a student's caught with THC on them, it's probably not the first time they have it. So one of the things we're looking to do is to monitor. Right now, it might be the first time is maybe in-school suspension for a couple of days. And what we might change is the first time might be bring the parents in or guardians with the student and bring a counselor in. Like we have a substance abuse counselor, we have Lauren, and offer some options and maybe reduce it to 1 day of in-school suspension. Because we know that we have to take a hard line, but we also still need to be therapeutic. So I've rambled on enough. But we're going to take drastic measures. And again, we want to make sure that kids feel safe in school, that it's difficult for them to use, difficult for them to definitely deal in school. But I would and again, I'm not coming to you with numbers today. I'm just saying that I'm aware from numerous sources, from data, but also anecdotal information from parents that this is going on. And everybody, I think people know my story, and that, I believe that we can make it very difficult, at least for people to do that in school. And so that I can look parents in the eye and say, hey, we're going to do everything that we can do to make a difference, right? Because that's all it takes. It's making a difference. So that's it from my end.
Thank you. So before we go out to the public, Mr. Pearson, do you have any comments or questions?
I'm glad to hear we're trying different strategies. My daughter's at the high school, so I hear often about the issues regarding vaping and the bathrooms. We're at kind of a precipice, or at least we're approaching one, because we're starting to reach a point where enforcement or discouragement is starting to potentially have an impact on students who just want to use the bathroom. So whatever we can do to accelerate getting our arms around this and trying to remedy the problem, I'm all for it.
Thanks. Ms. Clooney?
I'm with James. Anything that we can do to, mitigate this, we need to really, you take the bull by the horns, basically. That's the only way it's gonna, you're gonna get it under control and hopefully get it out of the schools.
Thank you. Mr. Murray?
I think we discussed this more than a few months ago now, and I said it's beyond a health problem, it's a school management issue, and now it is a major health issue. And it is a major school management issue, and I'm glad it's finally kind of getting the attention it deserves, because I think, honestly, we've kind of taken a soft approach. I think all of Rhode Island has on, well, we know it's out there, and we're tackling it, but not really putting the money and forces behind it that we should. And so now it's ramped up. So now it's bigger than tobacco. And it really came to my light because I had to do a lot of research for a paper that I wrote on this. And my eyes were opened. And then I got scared as a parent, as a parent with their daughter going to middle school. And that really kind of jars you into sort of action. So I'm encouraged. I would hope that at the building level, our administrators are really bringing this to light and not afraid of the public perception, because it's not taboo. This is going on everywhere. That I think that what we can do is be proactive and lead the state in how we address it. And I think that's what I hear tonight. And so that comes down to, I know that at one point you had talked about vape sensors and talking about different management strategies and how we deal with it. And obviously within the bounds of the law, but the gloves have to come off at some point. And to really tackle this, because we're in the business of education and this is becoming a problem. My biggest concern as well is the kids, Mr. Pearson, you alluded to it, the kids who aren't doing it, who just can't use the bathroom. Right. And it's the resources that we're not able to provide. The deans that now can't address hard issues in the school because they're monitoring bathrooms with 30 kids in it. And to me, that's unacceptable. And I think it's a waste of our resources by not tackling this head on. We're actually, we worry about money. Well, guess what? Now we're going to put more people in these bathrooms to monitor them. And that becomes a management issue from the school committee standpoint in an already tough budgetary time. So I'm encouraged by it. Whatever we can do from the school committee end, I'm all for it.
I just want to add to one thing you said, and I didn't mean to jump in before Mr. Florio goes, but it's a community issue. This is not just a school issue. So, and I just want to be clear. Like, I feel that parents, there's a, maybe Dana or Lauren will talk about, there's something hidden in plain sight, that I've spoken to many people, and I know myself. I'm cautiously, I want to believe that my son or my daughter, they don't do certain things, but I also know that there's always a chance, right? And, I check Facebook and all Instagram. That's the only reason I have accounts. I follow my kids all the time. And if I see my daughter with a red Solo cup, she hears from me, right? And she's 24. But this is a community issue. So I'm laying out things that we're going to do as a school because we control this environment. But a big part of this has to be parent engagement. That's why I think that the high school had presented. I saw Ms. Maycumber with one of the counselors and one of the guidance counselors talking about this alternative in terms of the discipline code. But I just want to say one thing that I forgot to say is, as soon as this came to light, Ms. Maycumber pulled an assembly together with the support of the teachers union, was very supportive of it and said, we're all in this together. This isn't about administration. This isn't about deans. We need everybody to step up their game. And I'm paraphrasing a 45-minute faculty meeting, but I was there. I actually, I went there to listen, and everybody was on board. And people are hurt. People are angry. I spoke to many teachers that are angry because this is happening like, they feel bad. They love these kids, and this has been happening just because of the technology today. And so I just wanted to say that as soon as this came to light, the high school itself took some strong action. I mean, the best resource we have are our teachers, like we just saw Ms. Lechka. I mean, so this is a full court press, but we need the parents' support. We can't have the parents saying, they can say whatever they want, right? First Amendment rights, but I've already had people complain about, you had no right to search my kid, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're going to make sure people are safe. This is life or death now. I don't want to be the first district to have a student. You don't want anybody to die, but this is killing people. We see this. So I just wanted to add that to that.
Good point.
Mr. Florio.
Good work, Mr. Levis. Pulling everyone together, coordinating a strategy, and tackling the problem. That's all I have to say. You're doing the right thing, and we as a community, we're doing the right thing, and good collaborative work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. My only comment is that I'm really glad that we're taking some good steps. I think, if I remember the legislators meeting last year that we had, this topic was brought up, and I think I may have made the comment that we need some stricter laws. This marketing of flavored vaping products to our children, which is what really has happened in this country, is a tragedy. It's a national tragedy. And at that meeting, I made a comment about, where is the FDA? Why have they allowed this to occur? And part of the problem is, and even now, the people that have died from vaping products, they still haven't come up to there hasn't been a consensus as to what has caused it. They've been doing pathology on the specimens from these poor people who have died their lungs, and they're still not clearly able to absolutely say what killed these people. Vaping is not innocent. It's going to kill people in the future, and the fact that our children have become addicted to nicotine in a higher percentage than even people who smoke cigarettes. And these kids have thought that this was something innocent, that it wasn't going to hurt them. And it's just like unbelievable that this has happened, as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of parents didn't even know it was happening. Teachers didn't know it was happening. And it was just under the radar. And now that it's reared its ugly head really badly, we have a lot of addicted people out there, a lot of addicted young, basically what I consider children. And again, I blame our government, I blame the US government, I blame the FDA, and I blame the companies that have done this on purpose and have marketed. For them to say they didn't market to our children is a lie. It's a lie. It's all been about money. And there's no way that you sell bubblegum flavored vaping products to adults so that they will quit smoking. So I could go on. I'm not going to. I want to give this out to the public, but I'm so angry about this, quite honestly. And it is a national epidemic as far as I'm concerned. And we have to do the same work we did with smoking cigarettes. The same thing has to happen in this country, and we need to put some funding behind advertising on the other side and not allowing our kids to buy this online, and parents have to be aware of it. And that first assembly we had last year, I learned some things I didn't know about. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, why aren't more parents here? Why don't they know about this? Their kids could be, really in huge danger here. So I'm really hopeful that this assembly that we're having, I guess on November 13th, that more parents, it's all over the news. People are becoming way more conscious of this epidemic, and hopefully we'll get a good turnout. Because obviously it is a family thing. Families have to be aware and help their child to get past this addiction. So that being said, I'll get off my soapbox. And if anybody from the public wants to speak, please come to the podium and identify yourself. I don't know if anybody wants to. Just tell us your name and address, please, for the record. And turn that on. I don't know if it's on. There you go. That sounds it.
Hi, my name is Kristen Pyrus. I live at 11 Clubhouse Road, Coventry.
Yeah.
I'm here today as a almost 20-year resident. I have 2 children in the school department. I have one at the high school and I have one at the middle school. I struggled with coming here whether I'm here as mom or I'm here as an educator. I've had the pleasure of teaching in Coventry for 16 years, almost 17 years at the elementary level. So I am here for both reasons. You are absolutely right. These are our children, and I'm not here just for my children. I am here for our children. And I do want to start by thanking you, Mr. Levis, and also everyone from CHS who are rallying around our students and shining a light on this epidemic. It is absolutely an epidemic. It is the culture. If you talk to a high school student and they are honest with you, they will tell you that this is not abnormal anymore. This is our norm. This is our culture. It is frightening. I don't think, and my worry is that, we're here tonight, we're talking about it. Teachers, administrators are doing everything they can. I believe that as a parent at the high school and at the middle school. I'm hearing some really good things about what's going on in the middle school. I need everybody to help our children. And I am sitting here encouraged, hearing and seeing your faces agreeing with that. And I thank you all for that. Our teachers and our administrators at the high school need support. There's no doubt. We're trained as teachers. It's hard. I've done a lot of research on my own as a parent and as a teacher to see what these products look like. Easy to miss. There's some great documentaries out there. You said yourself you did some research. We're going to miss things unless we really put some time, money, effort, education into not only the adults but the children. We're talking about, you mentioned wands and supervisory staff, dogs. I know we used to do that years ago. I am also older. I have a 29-year-old son who graduated from CHS. This is not a new problem, and we know that. And this is hard for me. I'm not a politician. I'm not a public speaker. This is kind of weird. But that being said, I do think that as a community, we owe it to our kids, to our community, to Coventry, to hit this head on and not let up. I think we need to. I know we need to help them, help families, help teachers, help you. We need to do this together, and we need to do it hard, because I think you said Coventry's on the map for a good reason right now for science, and Mrs. Lucca. We don't want to be on the map for one of our students dying, and that is what is absolutely going to happen, and it terrifies me. So if there's anything that you can do to continue to support our children as a parent and a teacher, I thank you now. And I know I have many people behind me that are also parents and teachers that are here because they're invested too. I teach first grade. My first graders will be going to high school.
Someday.
When we talk about the vision of the graduate, nobody's really acknowledged that maybe they won't graduate because they're doing drugs. And I do think that we need to help them. So that vision that we hold so high for them, we get them there. Because if not, they're not going to get there, and we have to all do our part. So thank you for listening, and I will keep showing up, and I will keep speaking. And again, not easy for me, but I will do that, and I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you. We're definitely encouraged by the support that we at least feel right now with this issue. I have been taking calls from parents and meeting with students who have really provided me with a lot of information that's been really eye-opening. So this is not something new to the high school. I've been there for almost my entire career. And we've always, dealt with smoking issues in the bathroom. And, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I felt like we had a pretty good handle on that. You can sense, you can smell when someone's smoking. And we really did, it seemed to really get rid of the problem for a while. And then with the vaping, it, really started back up again. But what has really struck me and really scared me and has prompted me to not care about our public perception right now is that we have to keep our kids safe. When I heard from a parent who told me that her child was able to buy THC pods for $30 in our bathroom, and after a period of time couldn't get high enough from smoking those, and that the next step was going to be to find a stronger drug. I couldn't sleep all weekend. And we met as an admin team. I think we all felt the exact same way, that we have to do something about this. We have called ambulances. Last year, we had to call an ambulance for a student who was almost unconscious. And I am not going to wait for someone to die on my watch. I don't care what I look like in the public with this problem right now, because we have to attack it, and we need to we need to do better for our kids. Our admin team, our deans have done a fantastic job over the past few weeks of stepping up. We've been outside of those bathrooms every day. We've been inside of those bathrooms every day. There are 6 stalls in the girls' bathroom. I will stand in the bathroom and say, okay, come on, 6 of you, come on in. And I'll stand there when one student walks out. Okay, next, come on in. We're not denying kids the bathroom, but we are trying to keep control of it. I do think some kids who are really complaining about it are kids that want to be in there doing what they shouldn't be doing. This is not a problem. This is a problem for all kids. It really is. I am blown away at just every type of student that we have at our school has a problem with this. And our athletes, we're finding even our athletic teams are struggling with this problem. So it's our job to address it. And I think, Lori's here too, I just think we are not going to sit back and continue to watch this happen. And we have stepped up our game. I have taken several complaints from parents. I've also heard from many parents saying thank you. My son goes to our school, And he never says anything to me, he never even wants to acknowledge me at school. But he did thank me last week. He said, "Mom, you are doing the right thing." And you know, some of my friends who don't do this are very appreciative that this is happening now. So I hope that we can continue to work together to tackle this problem, because it is a huge, huge problem that's going to require all hands on deck. So thank you.
I think that having Lauren in the school is a huge support for us too. Lauren Cohn, and also the 7 Challenges has also been very good. But when you hear kids say that, you know, they started doing this innocently and realize now that they are addicted and can't stop, and now they're looking at other things, it, you know, you really, it hits home and you realize the crisis that this is. So not to scare people, but it is scary. It's scary for us knowing that kids that we see every day are in trouble. So.
And we did put a forum together for the 13th. Lauren is going to be there also. From her agency, they're bringing like a sample bedroom. I think you alluded to it, hidden in plain sight. There'll be a visual there for adults to show them what they might be missing in their kids' bedrooms. The other thing that I did send out a Google form yesterday to parents, asking them if they want to come in to meet for breakfast. I know some parents can't meet at night. So I do have more than I expected. I did laugh. Mr. Levis was like the first to respond. So within 2 minutes, I had Mr. Chase and Mr. Levis. So, but I did get
Free
this,
breakfast, you know.
So, you know, but at that breakfast, it will be a couple of days after the evening event. And so those parents who can't attend that, we can still provide them with the information, because some parents can't come at night, and we recognize that. So we just want to get as much out as we can, and, you know, just encourage people to share information with us, and just hope that we can do better, you know.
It's going to be a long process, no doubt. And you're going to have to stay with it, because the addiction's not going to go away overnight. So, you know, we're going to try to hopefully encourage kids to really stop in school, and then and understand the real danger, because I really don't think half of them know how
Right.
dangerous this is.
And it is
So,
convenient for them in school,
Very
and we need
convenient.
to make it so that it's
not
not
convenient, and then
that
maybe
way,
they'll actually swear off
because
of it.
they may continue to do this,
But
and
they
that's
may
where, you know,
not.
Lauren Cohn comes in, where she is meeting with kids. We have the 7 Challenges, a counselor right on site in the high school who can also meet with kids. We know this is a huge problem. We need to make this less convenient for kids to get their hands on. I think the supervisory assistants are going to be a great resource. We'll be able to open a completely other set of bathrooms. We can open them and be able to monitor them too. It may be one at a time in there, but I encourage any of you to come and visit us during the day, and you will see that the majority of kids who want in the bathroom don't want to get in the bathroom to go to the bathroom. We have bathrooms open in the main office that kids can use, our nurse's office, down at the cafeteria. Teachers unlock labs for kids all the time who need them. So there are many, many, many options. I certainly don't want kids to ever feel like they cannot use a bathroom, but we do have to make sure that we are supervising things. So.
And making it safe for them to.
Yeah, right, and making it safe.
So they can use it.
But I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Carrie Potvin, 99 Reservoir Road. I want to thank Brooke. I'm so glad that you're not swayed by public perception right now. I truly applaud that. It gets swayed so easily, left to right, consistently. You can't even keep up. And I heard a lot of things that are happening, and a lot of, it sounds like you want to be supportive of this. What I heard a lot, though, was, well, we have to worry about legal. We have to worry about legal. We have to worry about legal. And I get that there's legal components to all of this, but I hope that that meeting is happening sooner than later. A meeting to find out what can we do? Where are our hands tied? Where are they not? Because something does have to be done. And we need to know what the parameters are so we don't get ourselves in trouble. But at the same time, I'm glad she's taking a stand. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Dana DeVerna, 1 Marion Drive. I came here a couple months ago, but I run the task force for the city, for the town. So I just wanted to give you some updates on some of the stuff that we have been doing, and thank you guys, the administration from schools, from allowing us to come in. We'll be doing education classes to the whole middle school in individual, like smaller class sizes, more team type things throughout the month of November, and then in the high school through February. So I think that's great. We got 4 vape detectors that we're putting in the bathrooms in the middle school that we purchased, the task force did. So we're going to put them, they should be in next week. So it's going to be all unrolling around the same time as our classes and the speaker at the high school. So I think the timing will be very good. And if there's any time that we could ever do it, like I could do it education for the teachers, I think I've done that, and I also do the shop in Cranston. And some of the teachers were just blown away about how they're actually doing it in class, so we can show them ways that they're doing it in class, how they're disguising it. There's a sweatshirt that you can still, smoke it out of the string around your neck. So what the companies are doing is they're doing that so the kids can disguise it so much easier. It comes in lipstick things, key fobs, inhalers. So there's stuff that they could also still do in class. I love all the work that we're doing in the bathroom, but it's still going to happen in the schools. So if any way that we could, like all the janitors were talking on the one school in Cranston because they went to this training and then found out all the pods, the colored pods that you take off the jewels, are all in the urinals. And they didn't know what these were, but they were blown away by how many pods were in the urinals. So they just had no idea, because it's just a plastic cover. So, and I'm waiting for numbers to see how it's going with this new executive order that's in place right now. So you can't, you currently can't purchase any flavors. But I went to a store and there were flavors being sold. I contacted law enforcement. That's not their standpoint right now. It's business regulation and Department of Health. Supposedly I heard the first time is a grace period, then it's a warning. By then I think the 120 days will be up. So, I'm trying to see where that's going to go. Seeing the kids are saying they're still getting them. I found some websites that won't mail them to Rhode Island currently because of this, but some will. So I'm trying to see if the kids are still getting it. The fear that I have that's going to happen is that this combustible cigarettes is going to start coming up again. Those rates are going to go through the roof because these kids are so highly addicted that like one Juul pod's 41 cigarettes. They're going through that in a day. So if they can't just quit all of a sudden, and the only way I can compare it to, which it is a huge comparison, but it's someone that starts taking pills for a knee surgery, never thinks that they're going to be a heroin addict. These kids say they'll never smoke cigarettes, but if that's all gone and they can't do that, they're going to smoke cigarettes. So I'm worried that's coming up. So in a lot of the presentations we do, we talk about cigarettes too, because you ask a kid right now, would you smoke a cigarette? And they're disgusted. But they don't understand that it's the exact same thing. It's even, in my opinion, I think it's worse. I mean, well, just because everyone's like, oh, those are black market cigarettes. So they're all black market because none of them are FDA regulated. So every single one of them, you have no idea what you're getting. They won't be regulated until May of 2020 is what they said. So, but I think, the community working together with law enforcement, schools, and continuing doing what we're doing, and the parents. I just, I want to thank all of you for all the stuff that you guys have been doing and allowing us to come in.
Thank you for all your work.
Hey, Dana, I do have a question. Okay?
Yes.
How do you change, because we're talking a lot about the vape sensors and searches, and which is all, I am supportive, and obviously we have to say legal because obviously people have rights and we want to respect that, but I'm all for doing what it takes. There's a lot of things that I do as a parent that aren't popular, but that's right for my child, right? And I think we all have to take that stance, the administrators included. But how do you, and this is a question for Brooke as well, I'll put her on the spot, but there's a culture in the school that has been very positive over the past year. How do you create the culture, just like the culture you talked about with traditional cigarettes, tobacco kind of fell out of favor culturally. like, how do you actually combat that? Is there anything, any sort of programs that have been successful in changing the tide of perception? Because this is so new, or is there anything that can be borrowed from that sort of fight beyond the major lawsuit that kind of had a big impact on the tobacco industry? I mean, is there anything at the local level we can do?
Right now, I feel like a lot of us are in that same boat across the country, throughout the state, on what our next steps are with this. So right now, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know. It's just letting their perception known to the kids that, you know, ways to get them off. There's programs like, I know Fuller Hospital in Massachusetts you can go to get off nicotine like that for youth. Because some of these kids, they're going to need assistance to get off this. It's not going to be as easy as, you know, you're smoking 2 cigarettes a day for a week. You know, so it's trying to figure out the resources out there for them. I know they do a lot of texting for the teens to quit because they think like just that kind of communication will help them. The problem is, I use this example too. If I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day and I worked, besides physically, I don't think I physically could, like within working and going outside and putting my coat, like it's a whole process. These kids' lifestyles are going to have to change because right now they can just sit in their bedroom and watch Netflix and just vape all day. Like they don't even have to do anything outside of their normal routine to do this. So it's educating them on this. I'm hoping some of the stuff in the news is going to help them a little bit, but I think a lot more needs to happen. So if we can take out some of their school day of vaping, that might at least take them down to maybe not a pod a day.
Yeah, time is not our friend, and Mr. Murray brought up a good point with the tobacco industry settlement. You know, that money was used for PR campaigns, cessation programs. They don't have that for the vaping yet, unless they tap into whatever funds are left for those. And that cultural change took 30 years, so we don't have that much time.
And unfortunately, companies like Juul are putting ads out, say on Wall Street Journal, New York Times, stuff like that says Juul's for 21 plus. It's not addictive. It's not for kids, but then they're using social influencers and doing all that stuff on Snapchat, Instagram. So they're playing at both sides. I mean, their marketing is impeccable. I mean, their new marketing was the chief of Abercrombie and Gap, which are advertised towards teens. So I mean, they know exactly how. They're about 5 steps ahead of us as it is anyway.
They're all over the TV. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all you see, the vaping commercials.
Chairwoman Patno mentioned FDA. You know, FDA has spoken out about Juul, and they got a warning for their marketing activities. Just a warning. That's
Like,
it.
yeah, the new
Change or else was it, and or else could be 2 or 3 years down the line.
But the new chief executive officer of Juul, because the other one stepped down right amidst all this, is the chief of one of the biggest leading tobacco companies, like the same person. So it's the same exact company. So
Just a new way of
Around we
marketing.
go.
exactly. And so either way, then if we go back to combustibles, then they're rich again. So
Do we have plans for vaping centers at the high school? I know you mentioned middle school.
yes,
So, I mean, I'm just going to put Dana on the spot here because the last conversation we had was we're going to try them out at the middle school because there's some research that came out that they're not saying whether or not they're that effective. So, I don't know, they're maybe $1,000 a piece, something like that. But we're gonna try to see how effective they are at the middle school.
the pilot program
and-
here, my next year
yeah,
funding.
so
I'll be
we'll-
more than happy to help at the high school as well.
Yeah, so we can, so right now we're just gonna watch and monitor these.
It'd be interesting if they're effective. It's a lot
Exactly.
cheaper than the staff that we're having to allocate.
Well, you're still gonna have to
You still
have,
have to,
yeah, I mean,
Someone has to
and
know that the
right,
creates
having to
the
go
probable
constantly
cause
in and out, in and out.
That's right.
Is what these sensors do.
Right.
yeah. So,
No silver bullet.
right,
Thank you.
All right, thank you so
for
much.
your work.
thanks, Dana.
Hi, Lauren Cohn, 79 Gateway Road, and live in North Kingstown. So I'm the student assistance counselor at the high school. This is a new program there. Currently, it is in 56 middle and high schools in Rhode Island right now, and the goal is to get it to in every school. Research does show that with this program, the substance use rates have gone down. So I'm really grateful to be at the high school right now to help out with this problem. And it is a problem. I do have to say, I think most students don't use substances, but there is a large percentage that does. And there will be a survey going out around February, the Rhode Island Student Survey, to see how many students are using. I don't know if they'll tell the truth, but we'll see at least some sort of percentage on that. So I see students individually who are identified having substance use issues or mental health issues that could lead to substance use or declining grades. And most of the referrals are coming from mandatory referrals when they're caught using either in school or outside of school at a school function or intoxicated at school. So I've already had 10 since the beginning of October so far. So I've been seeing them individually, and my job really is to open up the conversation with them about this. I'm not there to tell them that they have to quit or need to cut back or that they have a problem. It's really just to talk with them, because I don't think that they're talking about this with anybody unless they're with their friends. So they need to be asked about this. So I use different interventions to kind of use different questioning to open up that conversation, and they're really honest with me because it is confidential. I think they feel safe there, and because they're so honest, it does get scary what I hear from them. I think since the faculty meeting that Mrs. Maycomber organized last week, I've heard that the bathrooms haven't been as big of an issue because they've been supervised more. So that sounds like a good thing. And the word she used was convenient, and I actually heard that today from a student, that smoking through a vape, even putting THC in there, is convenient because there's no smell, there's no smoke. They can do it in the classroom. I think they're worried about getting caught. So if they're caught once, I hear, I'm not bringing it again to school. I'm going to smoke before school, I'm going to smoke after school, but I'm not going to smoke in school. So I think, the scare tactic isn't always the best, but I think when they're caught and their parents called, that's usually the first time the parents are hearing about that they're using. What I plan to do in the school is groups. So I know 7 Challenges is already doing a recovery lunch and different user groups, but I'll be doing some groups similar to that, and groups for students who are not using, or if their parents are using, or if their siblings using, or if their friends are using, just a place to go to talk about that, because they could be stressed out and that could affect their grades and schoolwork. I'm doing universal activities every month, so just spreading the word about being drug-free and making healthy lifestyles. Dana's coming in to do vaping presentation for the 9th and 10th graders from December into February, like she said. So hopefully they listen and kind of get some education around that. And I'm also going to the classrooms, 9th graders, to talk about substance use, being an adolescent, using refusal skills, things like that, because peer pressure can be really difficult, especially at a young age. So I'm really just opening up the conversation. I'm doing education. I'm hoping that they're honest with me, and as they're talking, they do tell me that they're worried about their health. They don't see any effects right now, but they are worried because of the news. And I say, I'll eventually quit, but right now I feel okay, so I'm just going to keep doing this. So I hear that change talk in them, so it's not like I'm going to do this forever, but they're thinking about it. And most times they are open to some education about it, so I'll do that with them. So I'm happy to be here. I hope that we can make a change with this and reduce the use in the high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Anybody else?
Kristen Pyrus again. As I was sitting here, I just had a question. I know we need to focus on our addicted students, and I applaud that. We need to do that. But I do have a question. I know we have a school resource officer, and I guess my question has to do with consequences to dealers, because we all know, we have a problem in the bathroom, and we know kids are going to figure it out. They're going to figure out a way to do it, to get it. What are current consequences for dealers? Because we have dozens and dozens of dealers, and quite frankly, they're male, they're female, they may look the role or not. I don't know, we don't know. I mean, we may know some of them, but what happens to a dealer at Coventry High School should they be caught with product?
I'm going to let Mr. Levis answer that.
So if someone's dealing drugs, the police are involved, but then there's a whole nother system they go through. We have our own discipline code in the handbook. You can go online and take a look at it. But so it's still a double-edged sword in a way because we're still responsible for them. So there's a line that they go down in terms of with the police. But to me, it's people using and dealing, and you and I had this conversation. Like, we're going to stop both of that, right? Because if kids weren't buying, and that's that old supply-demand piece, right? Because we know it's more like we're talking about addiction. So the simple answer, the police involved, and then it goes that whole road depending on their age, correct? Like
Yes.
if 18-year-olds will be dealt with as an adult versus juveniles, and how that goes in terms of, may go in terms of the family court route. But I think right now, the best we can do that we're trying to do is, so we've talked about a lot of therapeutic educational things we're doing, but we're also going to make it very difficult. So when people get caught dealing or get caught pods on it, the other part is that culture where students in the past haven't said anything. Now we're starting to get students to speak up, that to talk about that, who people are, and if we catch certain people, then certain kids obviously, when the police are involved, will be prosecuted. But the best we can do, I think, is to make it very difficult for people to deal, but for people to buy. That's what our strategy. We're coming at it from both angles. But it's not like we can, we're going to follow the course. That there's a law in terms of how that's handled with the law.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to reiterate, I think we know this, we as a community, everyone here and everyone not here, like, we need to set the tone that we care about you. We want you safe in our school. We don't want you to hurt yourself, and we want to help you with that. So whether you're dealing, using, or both, we want to help you, and we're going to do what we can to do that.
And Kristen, you had asked me something, I hope you don't mind me sharing, but what you could do, it's like, so I feel that we're responsible all the time. So community needs to address, just like when we went through the budget process, we need a community to rally one way or the other, but to rally support, we need community members and your, other members to support us in this. This is really going to be, like I said, I'm taking a strong stand. We're taking a strong stand. The committee is that we're going to address this the best we can to try to make it difficult. But we know that culture, it takes a lot more to change culture, and we need the support. And we are in this for the long haul, just like we are when we come up with a plan. I don't mean to minimize this, but we come up with a plan that we need to raise test scores, right? We need to come on and stay the course. And that's the thing here. I don't want to give the message that, we're coming at this hard now, but this is something that if we're truly going to change the culture, we need to really focus on all those therapeutic components. And so we need more people involved, right? We need, so if you live in Woods Estates, the more parents, we need the more, this is something that's going to really take everybody, because we can't have this where the numbers just drop off, right? And then, we've got to make sure that we are getting people engaged and coming to this assembly, which I'm sure that we'll be sending a lot of information out, that we get parents to come and ask questions, because it's disappointing when you put out an assembly for a cybersecurity or social media, and you have 3 parents and 4 teachers there, or we put out something with vaping that we know is a problem, and we have 14 individuals. We really have to try to get more people. And I know people's time is precious, but I can only speak for myself, and I think I speak for myself. There's nothing more important in my life than my children, and we have to make sacrifices. So I'm hoping that, you and others can rally people so that we can really attack this as a community. Because we're addressing it as a school community, but this is I believe this is a community society issue, and I want to make that point very clear. But I appreciate, like I said, you coming to me and sharing with me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brooke, from a nuts and bolts side, because it was a fairly simple question, what is our policy if a kid's caught with 20 vials of pods of THC? There's a suspicion there's a dealer, right? So what is the current, under 18, which the majority of our students, let's say, are, what is the current policy on that as a drug deal internally? And is it sufficient in your,
The discipline code's in the handbook.
Right.
I think
Well,
Ms. Silver's addressed that.
Yeah.
If you wanna
I mean,
pull
I'm
it up
assuming,
now.
It is a referral to the school resource officer.
Right.
I would like for anyone caught with that to have to come and sit in front of the superintendent, the school committee, and have to.
would you mind coming up to the microphone? It's tough to hear you.
While Brooke's coming up, though, we talked about changing the discipline code, but there's a process for that,
I'm
too.
asking for myself, and this is a discussion.
Right.
I'm having a discussion. I think it was a fair question. Like, what
Yeah,
specifically is
no,
our policy on
I
that? Because
appreciate
if we
that
need to
question.
increase the policy, that is the school committee. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, there's not a lot of things we can do up here, right? I can't go to the high school and police the bathrooms for you.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can do as a school committee member is support the policies that'll make the changes. And what I just heard is that one of the therapeutic ways to do this is make people think twice about taking it to school, right? Because we can coach them all we want, but it's their decision whether to quit or not. But what we have control over is whether they get in trouble or they don't,
Right.
and what's the effect of that action. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, so we have caught kids before. They have been suspended, possibly up to 10 days. I would like for anyone caught with drugs on them to have a meeting at central office with the superintendent. And then we go from there. If we suspect someone of dealing, quite honestly, what I would like to see happen may be different from someone else, but I don't think that they should be allowed back in the high school. I mean, but we really do have to sit and decide as a community that we are going to support that. And so it's very difficult sometimes to go that route if we don't have the support above us. I don't believe anyone selling drugs should be back in the high school.
That's a
That
fair
is
statement.
I just want to state that.
But I
that's-
also have to
right.
follow the discipline ladder in the handbook, which does say at this point that it is a suspension up to 10 days. And
That's a
then-
process. If we're going to go back to, which the committee can choose to do, we have a process where you'll have to come before the policy subcommittee.
Right.
We discuss that because, and that's where I think the heavy conversations need to take place. Then we have those conversations here because we still have a responsibility to every young person, right? And I said we can never lose sight of that because then we're going to do the same approach to others. And I understand this is a hot topic now, but we have as a superintendent, I get a lot of issues where people don't want individuals in, right? So we have to look at what the state laws are, we have to look at there's no such thing as expulsion in Rhode Island, right?
And I get that, but we have a governor just, actually several governors who've just banned it for limited because it's an emergency situation. The THC is the problem. I mean, what the data so far has alluded to is that the THC, what they're inhaling, which is increasing, is becoming a larger health problem. The long-term health effects of normal vaping, people have vaped for quite a while now. We didn't see deaths until quite recently, right? So, I mean, I consider it as protecting our youth when a dealer is in school, making them think twice. And while I have a responsibility to that one child, and this is my own opinion, I have a responsibility to the other 99.95% of the youth that are in that school. And so if that one person has to suffer the consequences, personally, I'm okay with that as a school member. So I personally would like to have a
And then that's
discussion on the
why,
policy.
and that's why, so first of all, there's state law that says students can only be suspended for 10 days total. Then we have to come up with other settings. Secondly, that,
And are we exhausting that at the
well, I mean,
present
that's,
moment?
but that's
my
not
question.
the,
Are we-
that's
are we-
not the agenda tonight, though. I understand we're going off a little bit. If we want to put discipline on, we can do that. Because my concern is that, A, they're still students and we're responsible. Secondly, every member up here, every person that works for the school department has a responsibility to all students, right? So, and I have to deal with this every single day, that I have some complaints about a student, but I also have to, and people don't like the answer, but I'm responsible for every single student. We are responsible for every single student. And so I'm very cautious about getting off on conversations, even if you're stating personal opinions when it contradicts state law. And that's why I think we have a process which works fairly well, where you have an idea, you bring it to the policy subcommittee, and we talk about it. We have an attorney there, and then we bring it forward. because,
I know this is uncomfortable, but I'm okay with that because it's,
Well,
this is.
I
this is-
think
mean,
we just-
borderline
I'd just
more
like
than
to
uncomfortable.
interject
I'm
as the
not
chair.
saying, and I'm not saying what you're saying is right or illegal.
Thank
What I'm
you.
saying is, I want to understand better what's happening at the building level. And if these dealers are not getting the penalties that they should within the bounds of state law, then, maybe we've been a little too soft on this. And if it is a priority, then we need to look at whether our policies are correct or we're issuing appropriate action. That's all I'm asking. Is
I
that
think we have
if
been
this is a
handling,
discussion about vaping, which it is,
But it's
Sorry,
but
Brooke.
discipline. I mean,
I think
we're
we've
part
been
of it.
It's
handling
hand in
any
hand.
issue that we've had, according to our student handbook. To date, that's what we've been doing. And so I agree with Mr. Levis, though if we do want to continue the conversation, it is something that involves the policy subcommittee.
It does, and the policy subcommittee is open for any member of the committee to attend, and obviously, we would take recommendations from the people in the trenches, basically, your administration, and what you think needs to get done. And again, it does have to be within state law and
Right.
wide regulations, and you can't expel kids.
Right.
So it's as simple as that.
Right, I didn't say we would
No,
expel
I know you
kids.
didn't. No,
Okay.
I
Right.
didn't.
I know.
And
That's-
actually, even this community has to realize that if, after 10 days, if you need them in an alternative setting because they just are not allowed back in school for whatever reason, that's a note also of, onto this community. So if we can somehow deal with the child in-house, then, I mean, I think that's probably why.
And,
what we
and
would have to
that
do.
to me is the problem is, again, worrying about the note on this community on, suspensions.
It's a fact of life.
I know, but s-
We
if
can't
you
fix
don't
it.
head off the problem, then it's going to spiral and it's going to
I
get
think
worse.
this is
That's why these-
I
a
just-
conversation for another day.
It is a
So,
conversation for another day.
yeah, it's
It,
off-
the
it's a little
poli-
off topic.
It's a policy discussion. That's why the police are involved. It
Yes,
becomes a
exactly.
criminal matter. It's handled in the justice system.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have to reset because there's a lot of things being said without a real solid understanding of, first of all, what's in the handbook verbatim and what the policy says currently and what state law is. So definitely,
I'll
please,
be
I
glad to
recommend
meet with the
bringing
policy
this
committee.
to the policy committee, and yeah, we'll hash it out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then I guess we can go on to the F21 budget timeline discussion. I believe that's Sarah.
I hope so.
Good enough. You've had enough. huh?
Oh. All right, so in your packet is a school committee proposed list of budget workshops and due dates. So we have an aggressive timeline again this year. Really, we have to follow the town budget timeline. So this is just our preliminary listing of dates backing into school committee meetings, going off the idea that the second meeting starting in November will be a budget workshop. Just to keep in mind, some of the things that are not on here, we won't have preliminary state aid numbers, which is still based on last year's enrollment, until at least the middle of November. And again, that's on March enrollment data, so that will still be outdated. From a benefit perspective, we really won't have that until the end of February, early March. So as we did last year, we'll come forward with our best estimates, knowing that that is going to be subject to change. Really, from a staffing perspective, we won't start digging into that until the month of January. So budget books were just emailed out to principals. They have a lot more templates to fill out, diving down a little bit deeper and trying to but encourage more cross collaboration between principals and department heads. Not department heads, directors. And so we gave them extra time because basically over the month of November, we'll be having a lot of meetings with them on non-personnel discussions. And then during the month of January is when we'll start meeting, similar to how we did last year, to do more personnel discussions. And then we'll roll it forward and see where we're at. So I think the first budget meeting that we come forward with, we're not going to have a lot of numbers. I can tell you, even as of today, we had issues running, not paychecks, so paychecks are fine, but reports from my payroll system, everything reset. So we're looking at people re-entering things for the 5th time into human resources. So we're still kind of working through that. So the first meeting will really be more planning. We've done some goals at a central office level. We've asked principals to identify their primary goals for their budget season. So I think a lot of that is really going to be directing where we want this budget to go and then building the numbers backwards from that. So that's pretty much it.
Great. Any questions, Mr. Pearson?
Yes, I received a great email today from my council person, Councilwoman Bacon. There was some interesting content in there, but the thing that jumped out at me was there's a section of Rhode Island General Law and also a section in our charter which requires the town to provide the school committee, which is interesting, not the school department committee, with a 3-year budget projection, and vice versa. The school department is to do the same. Would it be possible to amend this calendar to make sure that's listed on here and that exchange of information happens?
Yep, I think that's on the it's due on the December 9th, so we can add that. And I know she
Well,
did
that's
re-
when the work session is. State law says the 3-year projection has to be delivered by November 1st.
So we can do, well, I'm going to back up. So I can do a preliminary 3-year projection for
probably
November
all that's
1st. I can tell you that pretty much every single state deadline this fall, we've requested an extension on and have been granted, given current circumstances. So I can certainly put one together, but it will absolutely be rough, knowing also that next year is our last year of our contract. So after that, it's going to be a really rudimentary
But also,
guess.
in addition to, I know you have work to do on that, and I know the circumstances are not ideal with the ransomware situation, but I'm really also very interested in seeing what the town puts forward. So they have the requirement to give us information as well.
Yep. And just to keep on that, we have had several meetings with the town requesting and to get an idea of where we think the council is gonna sit. We do a financial leaders meeting, and my recommendation was that if we know right off the gate that the council is not even going to entertain anything higher than a hypothetical 2%, I think we need to know that, because that would shift how we would do the budget presentation. I still don't believe that we should present something just to fit in that confines, because I don't think it's going to be adequate. But I think we would start right off the gate saying this is what we need to run the schools. This is what council, what we're hearing from council. So right off the bat, this is what reductions would need to take place. So it's not a spring scare tactic. It's an honest discussion that if that's the budget that you want to bring forward, then you need to know that these are the cuts that are going to be made right from the beginning. So I agree that getting that information from the town would be helpful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, Mrs. Colonian? Mr. Perry? Mr. Murray?
Was this just a schedule? Is it coordinated with the building committee and everything we're doing there? Because I know we had a pretty extensive schedule there, so was it just vetted for conflicts?
Right, so most of these meetings on here are already school committee, and then I just kind of added in
The building.
when things were due. So I will go back and double check and make sure. I don't believe so, because most of the workshops are at regularly scheduled town council and school committee meetings.
Yeah.
Some of the deliverables, like the 7th and the 14th, we don't actually have to meet. I just have to send those over. And I don't have a meeting between the 7th and the 14th, because I'm going to give you the detailed budget on the 7th, before the 7th, when you vote on the 23rd of January. So I don't think that there's any conflicts, but I will double check.
Okay, that's all.
Dave?
I will not be available December 9th. My wife, I'm taking her on a trip for her 60th birthday. So it'll be 1 week. I'll be away. And I won't, that looks like the only budget work session I will not be available.
That's going to be a super preliminary budget as well, and you'll probably have way more fun than we will.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't have anything for you, Sarah. Anything from the public? Okay, I guess you're good. Thank you so much.
She's gonna give me a heck for saying her name, her age.
Moving on to 13, the building committee update, reference number 7. Mr. Levis, did you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just two things. One is that we had our first building committee meeting tonight. The chair of the committee is Mr. Murray. The vice chair is Mrs. Alita Hall, who's a parent and also works for Gilbane Construction as a project manager. We also have the community forums that are going out next week. I believe we start on the 29th, which is Western Coventry, and the 30th is Hopkins Hill. So we hope that we'll get the word out there. I know the Patch did an article on it. I know the Kent County Times was doing an article on it. I don't know if it's been out yet. We've put it out through different social media listservs. So we're hoping that we get a good turnout, get some feedback. And I think we said we're going to set up a meeting November 6th so that we can, the budget committee will put forth a letter of intent, right? And then that'll go to the school committee. Then we'll get that to the town council. So I don't know, Mr. Murray, if you have anything else you want to add on that. But we put that on there as a standing agenda item just to keep the community.
No, we had just a quick report. We had a productive meeting tonight. We have some very bright people who've stepped up and volunteered. And we just had a presentation from the architect on the basic process. Our next meeting, which we did schedule, we made an interim meeting to make sure that we got the letter of intent in early. So that way we have that kind of slated, a foot in the door. And then we can focus on the stage one, which is due February 17th, I believe, right? So it sounds like a lot of time with holidays, schedules, everything else. It's really not. So the building committee, I just want to thank everyone on the building committee who's donated their time, because I know time is precious. But again, parents stepped up, all the leaders stepped up, and I think we have a great crew. We're going to do great things coming up. So that's all.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions from the committee about that? I think we're all good. Anything from the public? I guess you're on again, Mr. Superintendent.
Oh. So we've talked a lot about school safety when it comes to substance use. So I'm going to let that topic kind of stand. In a minute, I'm going to ask Mr. Cowart to come up briefly, talk about school messenger. You have it in your packet, the school committee meeting schedule for the 2020 that we had a question last year. We've switched that. I believe the high school had moved one of their meetings. Is that true, Ms. McDonald? One of the meetings, the high school had adjusted that, National Honor Society. And then I just attached the 2020 budget calendar resolution, which is built into the our FY21 budget timeline that Ms. Mandrelli had given. I just want to add, this Friday night is the Parks and Rec are holding their Friday's Halloween Spectacular, which is tomorrow night. I'll actually be there with the trunk and treat. They're going to have 14 cars this year. And thank you to Miss Denise Ahern, who is my interior designer. She's doing it again. Well, she'd be embarrassed to see what I was going to do. I was going to put a scarecrow in my trunk, right? That's what I was going to do. So, anyways, but Miss Blumenthal wanted to thank, it's our Coventry High School Drama Club and Mr. Wilkinson. They do a great job. If you go in, they have like a little haunted, I don't know what you call it, but you go through a couple of hallways, and they do a wonderful job. And last year, I know I gave out 1,100 pieces of candy, plus the 120 I ate myself. So I was like 6-8 big bags of candy. So we're expecting a bigger crowd tomorrow. So Mr. Cowart, do you mind coming up quickly and just letting people know what School Messenger is about?
Okay, so the question is, what does School Messenger have to do with curriculum instruction and assessment? And the answer is nothing. I also oversee the elementary schools, and this conversation spawned out of that role, not having anything to do with curriculum instruction and assessment. So most of the elementary schools only have one clerk, and when somebody is absent from school, those clerks make manual phone calls to the homes to let the families know that the student wasn't in school. And we found that on days where we had high attendance, it was very difficult for a single clerk to make all the phone calls home, and really what we would expect to be a reasonable amount of time. And we, in my role, had gotten some feedback from parents saying that, if my student's out of school and I'm not getting the call until, afternoon, that's not really meets my expectations for what's a reasonable amount of time. And I agreed with that. So Sarah Mandrelli and I started talking about different opportunities to automate that process. I live in Cranston, and Cranston has School Messenger, and you get an automatic phone call through a system that notifies you that your student is absent. My call comes in at 10:30 on the dot. So if my daughter is absent, I get a call exactly at 10:30, and it says, this is a call from the Cranston Public Schools. Your daughter so-and-so is absent from school, this particular school, on this particular day. At the time when we had that conversation, it didn't fit in the budget. So we kind of tabled it and left it on that wish list. And then this last budget season that we just finished up, we were able to fit it in. And we discovered that School Messenger has actually a much broader capacity that we even realized, because when we initially looked at it, it was really just about calls for absenteeism. But when we met with the rep, and Jim Murphy jumped in and so did Jason, we found out that you can actually use School Messenger for all kinds of communication, emergency communication, snow communication, delays. You could even use it in the way that some teachers use the Remind app, where you can send notifications out to people based on different groups that they belong to. The challenge was Aspen, our student information system, wasn't set up to be able to identify all those different subgroups. So the file that we had to create, which goes to School Messenger, it's every day at 10 o'clock, they get a file from us. And that file says, here are all the people that are absent. And it sets up those calls so they happen at 10:30. But it also updates all the contacts that are associated with a student. And it gives us a bunch of ability to sort. You can sort by school, you can sort by grade, you can sort by mother, father. At some point, once we build it out, you could sort by bus. There's so many different things you can sort to do automatic communication. And the communication comes in a few different formats. It could be a telephone call with a live voice, so I can record a message live through my own phone. And then when that message goes out, they hear my voice. If I prefer, I can type a text into a text box, and then it will just do an automated voice, which is probably preferable. Then, if you wanted to, you could select that it also gets an email. So the person will get a call and get an email. And then we could build it out over some time. I don't think we're at this point yet because it's taken so long just to get this part set up. We could have it synced to our social media accounts in Twitter and Facebook, and we could even have it synced eventually to do SMS, which is text messaging. So we could set it up so parents got all those notifications, which is really powerful because it's giving people the information they need in the way that they are most comfortable getting it. We only haven't started yet because it's taken us some time to get the file working. And Jim has done a lot to get it set up, and I think there's only 3 of us that are actually in there right now live who've been able to play with it. And we've sent some test messages to ourselves, to other people. We've actually picked up a few errors that were just small errors, but Jim was able to go in, make some adjustments so that those get fixed. So what we're going to do after tonight is we're going to send a letter out to the community and letting them know that we have School Messenger, what the capacity of School Messenger is, that we're going to run some test messages, starting with some small groups and then expanding out to larger groups. And then from that point forward, administrators will have, at this point, we're just going to give it to administrators, will have the capacity to use School Messenger to notify parents of different things going on in their building. And as a district, we can use School Messenger to notify people about emergencies or just general information. And then we will also have the automated absentee call built in.
Sounds great.
Any questions? And it actually has been sort of a neutral, net neutral cost, because we also realized that the high school had already had a call system in place. And so there was some money already dedicated to just that one building. We also had Code Red that we were using for emergency notifications, so there was some money dedicated to that. And then when we looked at the cost of this, it became fairly neutral, but this became more powerful because we're pulling from Aspen and we're pulling from our own student information system. People don't have to like put themselves into it. And like Code Red, you had to put yourself into the system. This, it comes right out of the system. And then the last thing I'll say, because I was told to be short, is if numbers or emails are wrong in the system, we get a report that says these numbers didn't work. And then at the school level or at the district level, we can notify parents to say, your phone number needs to be updated in Aspen. Can you give us an accurate number or email? So it's going to keep Aspen up to date as well.
Sounds great.
That's it.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay. Well, you're all done? All right.
Finish. Finito.
Are there any questions for the superintendent's reports? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Any citizens' comments out there? Have you talked yourself out? Looks like it. All right, are we ready to schedule our next meeting?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the next meeting of the school committee be scheduled for Thursday, November 7, 2019, at 7 p.m. at Coventry Town Hall.
All in favor?
I second the motion.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And what time do we have?
9:10, 9:50, 8:50.
I have 8:52. Is there a motion to adjourn at 8:52?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned at 8:52 p.m.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming.